Hey everybody, it's Allie, and this is the Y&R Chat vlog for Sunday, November 16th, and this was one of the best weeks of the year in Y&R, hands down, and I'm so happy that I get to share my November sweeps thoughts with you. So here we go. I thought that we would just start off talking about Catherine. The funeral was so infinitely sad. I mean, I cried all through Thursday's show, all through Friday's show. I think I was crying the entire week on Y&R. There was just so much drama. The drama was on, and there was a lot to, be, happy and sad tears all at the same time. I'm like slobbering and snotting and just sobbing over my computer screen as I'm watching the show. I mean, to think that this could possibly be Catherine's final facial rejuvenation. I mean, the prospects of that are just too horrible to imagine, right? Honestly though, I really did have to keep reminding myself, Catherine is not dead, do not cry. I mean, seeing her in the casket was very effective, and it was torturous, really, and it was hard to not cry. I know you guys were crying too, don't lie. Definitely, I want to know, post your thoughts. What were your cry moments of the week, if you're not like me where you just cry at everything the entire show? What I thought though was another wonderful moment and something a little bit different for Y&R was Marges' soliloquy. It was very awkward. I mean, she's standing in the funeral home or the church, talking to us as the audience. It was very weird because she was breaking the fourth wall, which we don't see on Y&R ever. Talking directly to the camera, talking directly to us, which I still kind of need to analyze who exactly we were in that situation. It was very awkward. Not used to seeing anyone looking at the camera, so it was kind of creepy. But again, a wonderful performance, as always, from Jeanne Cooper, most definitely. So the question that is on everyone's minds is, what's the real story with the real Catherine? On Friday, at the very end of the show, we saw her lying face down at the lake. She was bruised and bloody and not looking very good at all. In fact, she looked like she had been lying. I mean, she has to have been lying there in the water for a while, not looking good at all. We also saw the preview for Monday's show that old Murph will end up finding her. Maybe that's not actually Catherine. The whole week I kept thinking, what if Marge also has a double? So Marge is Catherine's double, but what if Marge has a double? And there's a whole army of Catherines out there, Catherine lookalikes walking around. You never know. Actually though, what I think is going to happen is that Catherine is going to end up having amnesia. I mean, she's been traumatized by this car accident. Murph will, for some reason, find her. Have no idea why or how he's going to end up finding her, but he will, and I think he'll start to, call her Marge, and she's confused anyway, so she'll believe it. And honestly, this reminds me quite a lot of the storyline that first brought me to watching Y&R, which was when Victor left Genoa City. He found hope at the farm, and everyone thought he was dead, only to return in a dramatic fashion. There was, of course, fighting over the will that entire time, fighting over the company that entire time, and that's exactly what we're getting with Catherine right now. I will never forget that Victor storyline as long as I live, and it's interesting that they're kind of doing another spin on that right now. So let's talk about the will. Jill doesn't waste any time whatsoever. On funeral day, she's having a conversation with Billy and Kate about what's going to happen with the company, saying that they need to provide a united front. They need to have the appearance of stability through this time. I mean, the woman never takes her eye off the ball. And I feel that there is a certain part of Jill that is relieved at the idea that Catherine is gone. I mean, Jill has been preparing for this moment for years, being able to take Catherine's seat as chairman of the board and have complete control of Chancellor Industries. And I think that there's a part of her that is secretly, don't want to say happy, because I don't want to take away from the fact that Jill has lost her mother and that she is grieving, and I think that she is hurt by this, and I think that when she says, I wish there were so many things I wish I could have said and done, I think that she is being genuine, but you know, there's also just this part of Jill that's closed off. There's a part of her that's not capable of a certain level of loving. I think that Jill loves Catherine in the only way that really she can, or that she knows how. But I digress. The more important facet of the storyline, I suppose, is Mitchell Sherman came to the funeral. Mitchell Sherman in his wig. I mean, the guy, it's quite clearly, it's a bad rug. He should just shave. Mitchell Sherman should just shave the whole hair. It would look a lot better. But Mitchell reveals that Jill might not know exactly how the will is going to go down after all. There are some changes that Catherine made recently to the will, and that everyone who is a beneficiary will be receiving notification of the reading of the will. And how much do you want to bet that Jill is not one of those people? So the question then is, who is going to inherit the Chancellor estate? Will it be maybe Kane and Billy split between the Jill's children, possibly? There's a part of me that wonders if maybe Catherine wouldn't leave a good chunk of it to Esther. I mean, it would certainly make sense. Esther has always been loyal. Or perhaps even more likely, Nikki. Is it possible that Nikki will inherit the bulk of the estate? Nikki does not have a job right now. We've really been waiting for her to jump in and do something interesting. So that may very well be Nikki's new calling as the chairman of the board of Chancellor Industries, which will certainly cause plenty of fireworks between Nikki and Jill. Now, I don't know if any of that is actually going to happen, but what I do know is that Jill was a horrible, horrible, evil person to Nikki this week. It was really, really difficult to watch the way that Jill was squeezing Nikki out of the funeral services. Nikki was trying to help. Catherine is her oldest friend, and as I said last week, Nikki has been far more of a daughter figure to Catherine than Jill could ever be. But Nikki was trying to help pick the songs and make the funeral service something that she thought her friend would want, and Jill was just not having it. She wanted Nikki out of the way. Of course, adding insult to Nikki's injury, Nikki feels responsible for the fact that Catherine is dead. So Jill wasted absolutely no time twisting the knife, and not even to mention that Jill is really disallowing Nikki the opportunity to mourn for her friend. Nikki was standing at the casket this week, saying her goodbyes to Catherine, and Jill walked up to Nikki and said, "You're upstaging me. You're trying to upstage me. You've put on a show long enough." What? I mean, yeah, right, Jill. I'm sure that's exactly what Nikki is doing. She is trying to upstage you by mourning the loss of her friend. Jill's egocentrism is never to be outdone, never. And, you know, I think if we're talking about who is mourning more, look at the scene with Nikki and Jill when they found Catherine's body at the car wreck site. Nikki was she threw herself over Catherine's body. I mean, she was just so awful. I mean, when she left the scene and went over to Victoria's house later, she still had Catherine's blood on her forehead. I mean, Nikki was beside herself. Jill stood by crying, but I mean, there's this sense where Jill is just blocked off. She can't allow herself to really open up. I don't think she's ever allowed herself to really open up to Catherine. So if we're going to talk about who has, you know, more of a right to mourn, it's Nikki. And I was absolutely just disappointed in the way that Jill was treating Nikki throughout this. And I'm sure that you guys were too. Okay, and right up there with Nikki's reaction was Amber. Amber was absolutely devastated by Catherine's death, and they put a lot of focus on her at the funeral. It was very, very sad the way, I loved Daniel's picture that he drew of Catherine, wonderful, and Amber standing at the casket with that picture of Catherine, heartbreaking. Daniel was practically holding Amber up throughout that whole service. She was beside herself. And Phyllis, of all people, actually kind of being the bigger person and coming to comfort Amber. I thought that that was a nice moment. But now I think that Amber made a big mistake going to Jill with the memoirs, or the idea of publishing Catherine's memoirs. Jill has been against publishing the memoirs from day one, so I'm not sure what made Amber think that anything would change now that Catherine is supposedly dead. Jill ordered Amber to have the copies of the memoir on her desk by the end of the day. We don't know if that has actually happened yet. I was very surprised because I felt that Amber really should have known better, and she's lucky that Jill is not suing her over the rights to the memoirs, but we have yet to see, I think, how that storyline, or that part of the storyline, will develop. Okay, man, this is going to be a 3-parter because I've got a lot to talk about, but as you know, YouTube has the 10-minute time limit, so this is the end of part 1. I've got a lot more to say, so come back and join me for part 2.